The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our viewers, good morning. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise, and today we, as it has been every Wednesday around this time, 11, we are with Justice Kanyeihamba to share with us and the entire world the topic of discussion as he finds them necessary. Today, though, we'll ask him to say hello to our viewers, but also...
Hello, viewers.
Yes, we agreed that it's going to begin with our first segment is going to be a public lecture, and thereafter we shall dive into topical discussions which will include Honorable Namuganza's censorship and so many others. So Justice Kanyeihamba, say hello once again to our viewers, and then you...
I greet you all viewers, and I thank you for praying for me to be still alive today when the court of the Constitutional Court of Uganda declared me dead.
Okay. We want to ask Justice Kanyeihamba to because he considered issuing a public lecture today to the especially to young people, and in regards to the Kanyeihamba Foundation, and also issues to do with good governance and constitutionalism. And I will straight away ask him to take us through what he has to share with the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Norman. I am so pleased that you are the moderator of today's formal lecture known as Kanyeihamba Foundation Annual Lecture. A public lecture on a specific topic by an expert is usually delivered without interruption for about an hour or so. And then the moderator makes his or her own comment, and then he opens the discussion to consider the content and the importance of the lecture given. So it is a very, very important annual event in developed and civilized societies. Today in Uganda, we have two public annual lectures. The Bank of Uganda's public lecture in the memory of our Governor Mubiru. Yesterday, we had another one in honor of one of our greatest economists and the governor, Tumusiime Mutebile. I was unable to go there. I would have wanted to go. As far as I know, there may be others, but those are the ones that have been publicized. In my opinion, we should have an annual public memorial services to other great intellectuals who have contributed to the growth and development of this country. One of the public lectures that used to attract all scholars and intellectuals of the world was always delivered by the late Professor Ali Muzuri, who was the head of political science at Makerere University. Whenever everybody outside Makerere or outside Makerere or heard that Professor Macaulay was going to address his statement, they all flocked to Makerere public lecture room, and that became the focus of news, media, for everybody. I had the honor once to make such a public lecture and in support of the principle that civil servants should be neutral, that lawyers should be neutral who don't work for the government, that certainly doctors should be neutral. I was opposed by none other than the Secretary General of UPC, the late Felix Onama, and the late Ali, who wanted that anybody who works for the government has got a position should support the ruling party, which we regarded that was an enigma. I was supported by the late, I think they told me had died, Council Kabulindi or Bablindi. We were in the public lecture room of Makerere. I was only a lecturer then in the same university. After our debate, there was a fierce battle between the pros and the cons of those who spoke. Lecturers, professors, students made their mark that day. And then they put the matter to a vote, which you can't do here, we are only 5 or 6. And Bakabuli Indi, that's his name, Bakabuli Indi and I won 99% of the votes in the room. And Felix Onama walked out of the room angrily, and he said, "You students, you can debate and they win those debates. We, the UPC, shall govern and rule this country." Those are the famous words which we are seeing today by the NRA. But I wanted to confess that I have been wrong for criticizing President Museveni. The information I have, President Museveni has been a victim of ignorance perpetuated by his senior ministers and advisors. Yesterday, both in the morning and in the evening, I talked to his former prime ministers, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda and Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi. They answered my inquiries immediately. I actually was invited to go to Dr. Ruhakana's office. He's indisposed. He damaged himself in a farm. They immediately, when they heard that the judges of the Court of Appeal had said that Museveni is above the law and God, they immediately denounced that judgment as treasonable, and anti-God. When President Museveni swears for office as President of Uganda, which has been on numerous occasions, he swears under the oath of office. That oath of office, he says, I swear that I will uphold the Constitution of Uganda as by law established, and then he concludes, in the name of God and my country. I am very, very surprised that the information has not reached him that the court of, whether the Constitutional Court, chaired by Justice Engonde Ntende, has declared that he is above God and above the laws of Uganda. I sent a copy of the judgment to all the heads of the religious organization in Uganda. Cardinal Semogere of the Catholic Church, His Grace, the Archbishop of Uganda, and the Mufti of Uganda. Yesterday they received physically copies of the judgment and the condemnation of it. I think, like Museveni, their immediate reaction has been blocked by the agents of Satan. They have up to now not spoken, which is not very, very good. When my submissions were saturated to them some years ago, to those leaders and to all the judges of Uganda, and they were shown on the American video, and the BBC received them, we had already made by our submissions in 2001. Everybody knew. I called one of my relatives who works in the UK, said, yeah, we have seen what you submitted, but more importantly, she said, why have you withdrawn your petition against President Museveni? Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. I said, because he himself, President Museveni, has withdrawn his threat from the right to bail, and he has said he leaves the matters to the courts of law and their discretion. I even praised him as a statesman of Uganda, a man who loves his country. Now, to my horror and shame, the Constitutional Court of Uganda said he won the petition when he was not a party to it. How do you win a petition where you have withdrawn your name a year before, and then people say you are the winner? By now, if these judges, one of them, had any guts, they should have come publicly that we made a mistake. We meant it to say Professor Kanyeihamba and his fellow petitioner were only left two. Wavamuno, Alex, had won the petition. Why do I say that? Because the court, led by Justice Ekota Tende, had ordered the two respondents, the Attorney General and the NRM, to make their replies to our submissions and the notes of scheduling, and we had been allowed to file written submissions. And in contempt of that order, the NRM and the Attorney General, remember, President Museveni was no longer a party to that petition, but they held the order in contempt and they never replied to that order. So one of our prayers was that those two parties should be held in contempt of court and be penalized in punitive damages. And Gonda knows that. Elizabeth Musoke knows that. The other city judges know that. But instead, they ordered the victory in a non-party, President Museveni, who had withdrawn from both the petition and the threat to change the public law. This we have called the greatest legal scandal in the whole world. I wanted the country to really pause and ask themselves, why hasn't Semugeri, the Archbishop of Kampala, spoken? Why has not his counterpart? I forget his name. Bishop who?
Which one?
Hmm?
Which one?
The other one is Archbishop of Uganda. Come on, Nemun.
You see, when
what is his name?
I
said his counterpart. His counterpart is the Archbishop of Uganda. Let's go on. Now, I said don't talk. Just give me the name.
I will not give you the name now because you said, so as long as you're giving a public lecture, it goes unintercepted. And that's why I was giving you all the time.
Okay.
So when you ask me...
Okay, thank you. Then let me continue. The Archbishop of Uganda is David here.
Kazimba Mugaru.
Is Kazimba Mugaru. And that's why you have to say, you have used only 2 words. And we will have continued, but you have used 5 saying, the reason I didn't give it to you is you said you don't be too interacted. That will take longer than Kazimba Mugaru. I have to laugh with my friend Norman. Now, I have been reading all the 2 newspapers, the main one, in Uganda, limited the situation in Uganda. The New Vision and the Daily Monitor. You can't believe it. Their editors, including my former friend, I hope you see my friend, Cardinacci, have been silent. Every news item I send them to put there, they put it in the dustbin. I am co-owner of Sunday and the Vision newspaper. I own 1,700 shares. But because of the way we are governed, I should be one of the principal people to attend the meetings, public meetings and annual meetings of that newspaper. I am no longer invited. They sent me a reminder of my membership. I sent the money. They have never acknowledged it. These are unconstitutional, illegal activities by a national newspaper which claims to belong to the government of Uganda. This has created a constitutional crisis in Uganda. But if you read Ugandan newspapers, except social media, which is different, no word is mentioned about the most important developing in the history of mankind, that President Museveni is now above the law of Uganda and the world, international law, and he's above the Almighty God. The only people who have said so publicly are the Mufti of Machindi, the president of the Uganda Law Society, from my family information, and the Archbishop of Wales. They have, as I speak, denounced the judgment that Museveni is above the law and above God. If you are above God, then you are super God. So my good friend, Egonda Ntende, my former student, Elizabeth Musoke, and the other so-called justices, as worshipping and praying Museveni as the new God, and have ignored the real God, Almighty Allah, the God of the people. And people like me, please join us in weeping for our country. That is where we have reached. As I speak today, in the middle of January 2021, when the late Justice Brownlee, who is renowned internationally, was my tutor, and Lord Denning, the famous judges in the Commonwealth, was also my tutor. He declared that the edict of Lord Atkin, one of the famous lawyers in England, that the law is above any individual, whether they be the Queen of England or the Shah of Iran or the President of the United States. That is the combined statement of two of the greatest judges in the world, Lord Atkin and Lord Denning. When I gave my first lecture to Makerere, as a student, later I became a professor, the student said, then I said, one of my tutors was Lord Denning. They all laughed. They said, Lord Denning died in the last century. How can you have been his student at that time? And then Professor Kakoza confirmed that Lord Denning is still alive. And I can't remember anyone before him called Lord Denning. That's an amusing story. Professor Kakoza and I founded the Faculty of Law of Makerere. It was then a department. The new dean, by the name of Bazira, I recently sent him one of my big publications, Urban Planning, Development, and Acquisition in East Africa, with reference to India, UK, and the USA. It is the biggest publication in the world, and I was awarded for it by the University of Warwick, the Doctor of Laws, for contribution to the study of law and justice to Ugandan and the world at large. I have been awarded the awards for lifetime achievement by the Commonwealth and the British Council and by Ugandan writers for having published in spite of my busy schedule over 30 volumes of detailed analysis of our laws. Many journalists carelessly refer to my friend Janet Museveni as the First Lady. Which in our culture has been explained to me means Chikundwakazi or Nkundwakazi, meaning the most favorite wife among my wives. But as far as I know, President Museveni has got only one wife, which is Janet. And he has criticized the press for calling her First Lady, and reminded us that the people who call the wife of the president are the Americans. And the you journalists in Uganda are aping the Americans. For that, Honorable Janet, Minister now of Education, the date is here if you want to see it, the press. She has thanked me for not calling her First Lady. It is here, the letter. And they said, Professor Kanyeihamba, you are indeed my friend. But you asked the editor, Kardinachi. I told him this. And the editor of New Vision, they continue calling her. First Lady, implying to the whole world that Museveni has other women. You people, you can't even protect yourselves. So to go on, this judgment saying Museveni won is not only fraudulent, but it is dangerous for our country. And all former ministers have seen, including several of today's cabinet, have said it must be publicly renounced by the government of Uganda. One of the myths that Gondan Tende and his misguided colleagues, I don't think it is a question of saying they did what they did not understand. So they are really morally innocent. And my view is that because of that, the grave mistake they have made is so much that they should retire in the public interest. I wouldn't like them to be punished or charged with treason, which obviously they have. But having said that, we are addressing the whole of Uganda and the world. Why has not anyone come out except that the president of the Ugandan Law Society and Ruhakana Rugunda, Ndugu, and Mbabazi, who are no longer advisors, but they are envoys. So they are now our kind of ambassadors. But even ambassadors advise the president, but this is not on foreign affairs. They have come out openly. And the Mufti, rather Sheikh Rubega, and every priest I have called, my friend, they see the government, they were talking about yesterday, must dissociate itself and denounce that judgment by today. We were talking yesterday. Maybe Norman will advise me. Has anybody done so? No. So, my friends, when the government of Ugandan forces invaded the High Court, my then colleague, Justice James Ogola, described the siege as the rape of the temple of justice, as the rape, R-A-P-E, of justice of Uganda. Then the whole judiciary, we downed our tools and they went on 1 week strike. We were led by that brave Deputy Chief Justice, the late Chikonyogo. Deputy Chief Justice is dead. Oduchi was abroad. When he returned, he made the appointment and took us to State Lodge. I have now known it is State Lodge, not State House, in Nakasero. Amama was there. Ndugu Hakana Rugunda, I think, was then Minister of Internal Affairs, was there. All important ministers were there. And in front of them, President Museveni said, this is wrong. The police didn't know the law. But that law was settled a long time ago by Professor Kanyeihamba, when in his judgment, in his lead judgment of Tinyinondi versus the Attorney General and the Museveni, the Commandant-in-Chief of the Uganda Army. This Museveni is talking by saying that the right of bail should be honored. He gave us a cup of tea. We were there with our Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice, and we felt the same will never happen. Then after, there were a number of political statements by lawyers and others suggesting that Museveni was above the law. But the Constitutional Court has gone further and stated publicly with a judgment saying that Museveni is not only above the law, but above God. I pause to let Ugandans who are still capable to shed a tear, because this is disgraceful. It demeans the reputation of our country and is satanic. Finally, on this part of our public lecture, I'm going to stop so that Norman can comment and let everybody comment from the world and Uganda. Finally, many lawyers don't know. Some of them have even criticized me when I say on 2 occasions, actually 3 now, I have defeated the President Museveni. Then I explained to them, I did not defeat him as the sovereign head and the sovereign head of Uganda. That one, he's immune. But I defeated him in 3 other, can be defeated in the other 3 positions he holds. One of them is if he killed or damaged one of his relatives. Supposing he murdered them, would you say he's above the law? I defeated him in his capacity as a leader of a political party in Uganda and as head of government. He heads the Uganda government, and the Constitution allows us to bring a case against the government of Uganda, and obviously that affects him. And so, any lawyer, any judge, any jurist who does not agree with my interpretation of the Constitution, I challenge them public to a public debate when I'm still alive. And we debate publicly And to be courageous enough and put questions to our religious leaders and the judges. Do they agree that Museveni is above the law and the God? And if they don't, they should speak out publicly as Envo Yurakana Rukunda and Mbabazi and the President of the Uganda Road Society. Road Society did precisely yesterday. I thank you.
Okay, our viewers, thanks for your time. Once again, we are streaming live on our social media pages. That's the Alternative Uganda and also Digitalk TV. Every Wednesday, we are with Justice Kanyeihamba from 11 to midday to share lots of issues and also in regards to governance, constitutionalism, politics, the law, human rights, to mention but a few. As you have heard from him, I would want to ask you that you let us go into a very precise commercial break of a minute or thereabout. We will be back and then read comments, questions that there could be with us in our inbox or any comments, and then thereafter he will definitely respond to every single question or comment. Don't go away. We're coming back shortly.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hello beautiful people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambala ko ngoyo obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting gay. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwa gwali topic kiri wandiyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga tize tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season aba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting a topic yona gyandiyagadde twogereko tujja kwa tujogera kwano ku the Alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Come back. We are here to continue discussing with you, and we are humbled, as we have always been every Wednesday, that we have Justice Kanyeihamba. You have heard from him, and our next segment is going to dig deeper into what he has said, and also share, rather ask him some of the questions as you have sent to them, or some comments. And I want to now go back to Justice Kanyeihamba. You have talked about the demonstration that you people had under the stewardship of Justice Letitia Chikonyogo at the time as Deputy Chief Justice. And this was because of the provocation, for lack of another word, that the state had attacked court. And one of the best poets, Justice Ogola, wrote about it as the rape of the temple. In that very line, I'm sure you have followed the sequence of events in regards to the two parliamentarians that are still in prison, where, as far as we all know, the High Court in Masaka, some time ago, it granted them bail. And they were again grabbed and re-imprisoned, for lack of another word. But also yesterday, there are two issues I want you to elaborate about. Yesterday, the same court issued a court order that Honorable Sewanyana be given an opportunity to get specialized medical attention. According to the lawyers, Mulago at the time wasn't as specialized as it is deemed to be. This is the very person who is denied bail, but the same judge issues an order for such a person to have specialized medication. So in the event that this MP is referred outside this country for medication, and the same MP has no bail, what is the legality or an illegality in this whole matter?
You see the quagmire. Look up that word, quagmire. That the government has placed this country in. Obviously, a foreign country to receive a man who is wanted for bail, who has been denied for bail, is a criminal man who has escaped justice. So they would be entitled to say, you go back, we can't deal with escaping criminal.
That is if he leaves the country minus bail.
Pardon?
That means if he leaves the country without
bail, yes. Yeah. So the first thing, if I was the Attorney General, is to either suspend and let it be known so that there is a document on him saying you are granted bail, that will be the best.
On medical grounds?
On medical grounds, and you go and do it.
Is there politics in this manner? Because why would the trial judge grant a court order for the rather to the accused, and without having it in mind that the very accused might consider traveling out of the country, and then they also deny such?
Let me tell you, the judgment I was attacking and discussing in my annual lecture today was against the decision of judges of the Court of Appeal. You think they were blind that to deliver such a judgment would attract worldwide condemnation? But they were not they were oblivious to that. Their aim was to please one individual. They are cadres of Museveni. And I think for them to return him as a party and then hold for him the verdict is the most criminal act any judge has ever done. But the Ugandans are quiet. I'm amazed. If you listen at my narration of what happened and what is happening today, I only exonerate the former two prime ministers, Rakan Ruganda and Mbawaz, and the Law Society through their president, Awundo. But you ask, where the rest of Ugandans are, including religious leaders. They are frightened out of their wits. That's what has happened. No man.
What should the such an accused like Honorable Sewanyana do? He has a court order saying he can prisons should allow the same gentleman get specialized treatment, and on the other hand, he does not have a court bail.
In light of what I have said, he should give the British authorities Professor Kanyeihamba's condemnation. And armed with that by his lawyers, I include Lukwago, the British will accept him. Let me give you an example. When I was the leader of the Uganda Group of Human Rights in UK, my passport expired. So I applied to the Uganda Commission to renew it. They refused. So I traveled on expired passport to Sweden, where Bakana Rugunda and Mbabazi and the late Museveni were residing in exile, having escaped from Uganda brutality. So I went to Sweden, and when I reached at their capital, the immigration people, they say, "You man, you sound to be a lawyer. Didn't you know that this visa, rather this passport, visa has expired, and even the passport itself has expired. So you are traveling stateless." So I said, "I am from Uganda, and I'm in exile." The man didn't ask any question. He stamped me, entry allowed. Many people are not blind or not sympathetic to Uganda, who are in the plight of misgovernance today. I am sure if he shows that I'm a fugitive from justice and have come for treatment, I know the British, they will treat him. And since he, where is he now?
He's in Mulagwe. The question now becomes, how does he get out off the hook of Uganda prison service?
The way I escaped out when he was wanted by the Idi Amin.
Are you encouraging Honorable Sewanyana to escape instead?
I am told one of our very effective lawyers, Nicholas Opio, is in exile. You escape. I've escaped from Uganda twice. I think a man of the caliber helped by Lukwago can do so.
Okay.
We don't want him to die. And if the only way is to run away from Uganda and escape, please, good luck.
So as long as it saves his life.
That's right.
Okay, I'm sure you were following the sequence of events at Parliament.
Yes.
And I want to definitely refer you on to your former friends, that is Ewan Wapakabulo and also Francis Ayume, with how they managed that house, vis-a-vis how it is being managed now. What is your quick response?
I wrote to the Minister of Lands saying that the so-called presidential anti-corruption
Unit
committee is corrupt and has demanded a bribe from me to demolish the building Emista, Bazira, the former mayor of Entebbe municipality, has illegally grabbed my land and is building on it. The letter I wrote to the minister saying we are investigating, they have never responded again. The president's office has replied in the person of Joanna Kategaya, senior presidential advisor, that they are investigating. This is more than a month ago. What are they investigating? And you can ask the Law Society, is a transaction which is null and void and illegal from the beginning. And my lawyer has warned them that you should act, because what you are saying you are investigating further is null and void. How can you investigate on an issue which is null and void? Then I have discovered that these days when government say the investigations are continuing, they actually meant we are not interested anymore in this issue. This man, the chairman of the so-called anti-corruption committee, himself tried to threaten me. He practicing whether he works in Kampala, not even near Nakasero Lodge. There is only one state house in Uganda, and that is in Entebbe. So he summoned me that the president wants to see me last Saturday in the morning, 6 o'clock. So when I went there and I asked my informer in State House, he said, no, the president has not summoned you. Somebody is forging his authority. And indeed, General Isoke had written it, demanding the payment of 3 million to demolish alone the illegal structure in my land. And when he panicked when I found out that he was lying, he wrote that letter from Kampala as if it was from the president in Entebbe, and they reported him to the president's office. I don't know whether they have already suspended him, but there is no other course for the government to take except to remove him as a corrupt official from the committee.
Okay, I want to take you back to Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
You have not precisely answered my concern. When you look at the performance of the leadership in Parliament, apparently, as compared to Honorable Apakabulo and Francis Ayume, do you find any...
The current leadership is totally confused. It is, shall I say, scared by the executive. You see, in our days and the days of Wakababuru, the late Wakababuru was in charge of Parliament as Speaker. The word Speaker is the third most important position in the country, second to the deputy,
The vice president?
to the vice president. And he respected, Museveni was respecting him also. Today, these people are not respected.
Does that mean the president does not respect Right Honorable Anita Among and Tayebwa?
He doesn't. Museveni used to call opposition parties, UPC, FDC, Conservative, the enemies of Uganda. Among and Tayebwa are graduates from the politics of FDC. It takes you a century, as it has taken us, to recognize your former enemy as your faithful minister or speaker. So, Among and Tayebwa were formerly the enemies of NRM and Museveni. How do you they have Museveni consider them as having totally recovered from that position? So he doesn't trust them. When one of his sick relatives need the medical treatment, he flew them in his presidential jet to a foreign country to be treated there. When some Ugandans found out and challenged him, President Museveni said, I do not trust Ugandan doctors. I think that gives you the example. He trusts no one. Therefore, if you don't trust anyone, let me conclude here. If you don't trust anyone, no one trusts you or tells you the truth.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Again, in regards to that parliament, I'm sure you also followed the entire sequence again of events as they censured Honorable Namuganza. What does the law say such a censorship? What if does the president have the powers to reverse such decisions as made by parliament?
You make your personal decision. When in the UK we follow their constitutional history, they didn't even formally censure him.
Censure
But
Namuganza?
when they criticized the country, Margaret Thatcher as a bad prime minister, she resigned on her own. You don't need to be censured. You judge if you are of that caliber, president or speaker
Minister.
or premier. You judge for yourself. When they censured her successor, Boris, what was his name? Prime Minister.
You mean Boris of
He was Prime Minister. Boris what? The one who immediately followed after the one.
There is Tony Blair. There is
no.
Boris.
He's a conservative. He was a
There's
conservative.
Gordon Brown.
No, that he has got a different name. Boris, who we shall find out. Boris, somebody who was involved in many marriages and immoral actors. When they found him out, the police exposed him like you are exposing some. He resigned. Then a younger lady followed him, and he was also criticized. She resigned also, without waiting for a census. You see, good leaders judge
Johnson Boris
Yes, Boris
Johnson.
Johnson, that's him. He was the Prime Minister of Britain, Conservative. He was involved in many sexual scandals and other immoral acts. And when the press said he is that one, he voluntarily resigned from the premiership. When in Australia, which follows the same political system, the then Prime Minister, I think it was called Menzies, was voted out of office, not by any reason, because of incompetence, but he narrowed won the censure motion by about 2 or 3 votes. He judged for himself, I am no longer legitimate. Even if my party has saved me, I am no longer a legitimate president Prime Minister of this country. He resigned.
So does that mean, in your view, Namuganza shouldn't have waited for the censorship?
No, she shouldn't have. No, but let me tell you, I can't say that. I don't know the facts. Because what I have heard is that she made an act supporting her husband. What did she do supporting her husband?
No,
the only mistake she made, for which I want us to stop here, is to display Parliament when they ask her to come and explain. That is not defendable in any circumstances. You must obey the rules of Parliament and go to them. So for me, the only act I condemn her is disobeying Parliament when they had summoned her to go and explain her behavior.
Which choices does the president have on table so far? In the event that the president reappoints her, what do you think could happen? Does the law bar the president?
He should not reappoint her. So.
He has reappointed your friend, your Munyachigezi Jim Muhwezi, even when he had been censured some time ago. And
that is a bad precedent.
He bounced back as
so he
minister.
should not follow that precedent. It's a bad precedent.
What does the law say in regards to, if he was to reappoint her, does she qualify?
In Uganda, she and her friends will be entitled to open bottles of champagne in response.
I want to take you to a quick one here. I am sure you are aware that tomorrow marks your 37th year in power. I mean, you as formerly NRA and then later on NRM, and they are going to be in Kakumiro at the Prime Minister's district to celebrate their 37th year ever since they captured power. Much as the power was captured on 25th, you people refused to declare your capture for avoidance of sharing the same day with Idi Amin, who had captured Obote on 25th Jan. So you opted for 26th, which is tomorrow. Briefly, are you people, I mean, do you have anything to celebrate about?
There is nothing to celebrate about, but there is everything to mourn against or for. President Museveni was our leader. We loved him. When he led the NRM organization, very few of us of the regional supporters of the movement belong to the movement party, which he uses to commit all forces, or which his advisors commit criminal, constitutional, legal offenses. So there will be no joy, except for those who are benefiting from the party. And that party is not our original movement. It is a party that has been set up to grab everything from Ugandans and go in exile. sooner or later Museveni may even fly out of the movement. I wanted to say today that we should declare this day
26th Jan.
Hmm?
The 26th Jan.
Yes, okay, sir. Not only is the celebration of Museveni and Amin liberating Uganda, but it is a day of mourning for both of them ruining what has started as a good stench of government. And secondly, we should call it, it is also the day Professor Kanyeihamba gave a public lecture on the rule of law and shed tears. Not only that, but then unleashed the intellectual weapons and the brain power with which to remove the current regime. I want also to say that I apologize for some of the manners in which I have been aggressive against opponents of the rule of law. I have been advised by many people that Kanyeihamba, you are one of the problems of continuance of this government. Like Amin was the problem which prolonged apartheid in South Africa. But when you don't talk politely, which I not often don't, I tend to shout, which is a system I inherited from my late father. When you don't agree with me, I shout that you are wrong. And both Wakana Gunda and Babazi and my wife have said, Professor, that does not advance your causes. So from today, I want to promise all Ugandans and others that I will be talking softly, quietly, in obedience to those people. And therefore today I'm a changed man. I am not combative, but I am sober and a propagator of justice, integrity, and belief in God.
Finally, from what I want to hear from you, you have followed or watched General Muhoozi's return, for lack of another word. He has been in Far Eastern, moving around, and this is the same thing in comparison to, on the one hand, General Muhoozi, serving officer, is allowed to have his young people and the rest move around and celebrate, if that is what is the aim of the convenings. But on the other hand, also, you block Dr. Besigye from merely accessing an in-door activity. What is your take and any responses, especially in regards to a serving officer?
These are the politics of the NRM, double acrobatics in the governance. Well, you forgot to say, Muhoozi has denounced the NRM party, of which President Museveni, his father,
is the chairperson.
Is the chairperson. And we should analyze that at the next round. What does that mean? Secondly, what is he doing is contrary to the wishes of Ugandans, all of them. Some people have prohibited, including his uncle, Salem Saleh, that Muhoozi is not presidential material. His father agrees, President Museveni, who has been paraded by the deputy president, rather first the vice president, and Kahindo Tafide, who by miracle yesterday, when I called him, He was sober, and he said, "Hello, my brother. I want to thank Colonel Major Kahindo Tafiri for being so kind and to answer soberly on my telephone. What we discussed, I will not tell you, but the other person who called me was Amama Mbabazi, and he was very sober, and he said, my old brother, Museveni, has not called me to congratulate me on my escape from the constitutional court, because the constitutional court said one of the judges from my area, from Kabale, wrote 2 years ago that this petition is brought by Professor George Kanyeihamba in the brackets RIP, wasting national pain, because for him he thought I was already dead. They thought because of our poor reading, nobody would find that the petition was no longer against President Museveni. He wrote so, he's a man. Then the woman who wrote the so-called lead judgment, what's her name? Justice Mugenyi. Is the one who drafted the only judgment. The others are supporting him. They say, I concur. Whatever concur means. But she's the one who wrote that for the second time. She never read our submissions at all. Because if she had read our submissions, she would have found we have dropped President Museveni as a good statesman and a lover of his country. So you ask her today, before you go, find her name. Why did you draft a judgment in favor of Museveni, who was not a party to the proceeding? How did you come about that? So those, I urge all Ugandans and the international community to ask questions, not comment. From Museveni to answer, from the six judges who gave that fraudulent judgment, hoping that our reading culture, and Kanyeihamba, who had already died, one of them writing, rest in eternal peace, should ask questions, and they give letters, rather telephones of those people. And Wilson Kanyeihamba and my brother, Amama Mbabazi, who have denounced that judgment as wrong and satanic. Talk to them today, each of them. I learned that today, both Ruhakana Rugunda and Amama Mbabazi are envoys. So they are no longer advisors in the capacity of other advisors, but they are diplomats. So for me today, I feel happy. I want also to announce finally that I felt I had been poisoned, because for 4 days I was bleeding in the nose continuously, night and day. My daughter Betty and my niece Asime spent out all those days in my bed. They would come see the sheet pack covered with blood. And then I said, maybe I am poisoned. But all my doctors, Wakana Rugunda, Ndugu, and the Beny, have confirmed that no, it was an accident, but it could have been avoided not by Museveni or the government, but by us, medical people. And therefore we are sorry. And I want to exonerate Museveni, Ndugu, my other doctor, Amama Mbabazi, the entire Royal Society, and in particular its president, from any thinking or blame about my bleeding last week.
Okay, I would ask you to say your closing remarks to the viewers, and then we shall call it a day until next week.
Question is
Sorry.
Questions.
Those were the specific questions that we had. The ones that I asked you about the censorship of the speaker and Segirinya's rather these two MPs.
My doctors finally, Norman, have examined me from time to time, and they said also from my disease of diabetic, which is under fine control, I am likely to survive, and my life expectation has been revised to another 20 years. So if I die, it is either by design by some human, or that's the day, if I die, naturally, God set. No human being, not even the learned judges of the Constitutional Court, can determine accurately when Kanyeihamba will die. I am still around, dear viewers and listeners. Help me. Send answers, simply yes or no. Do you agree with the judgment of the Constitutional Court that a party who was not a party to the proceedings, Museveni, won, or the petitioners, Kanyeihamba and the Wavamuno Alex, won, and they should be given their remedies? Please, if you believe justice in Uganda, one way or the other, answer that question. And at the next meeting, which is Wednesday, we normally will disclose how many of you from out there and listeners, Ugandans and non-Ugandans, have answered that question, and how many of you have answered yes, Museveni is above the law and the law of Uganda, or no, Kanyeihamba is right, he cannot be. I be good day.
Okay, our viewers, catch you next Wednesday. But also to emphasize, today we have a specific show that is connecting Africa with the Caribbeans. We will be hosting a gentleman who is a jurist based in the States and who is a Guyanese by the names of Buck Rickford, and that's at 7 Ugandan time, East African time, 7 p.m. And also it's going to be 11 a.m. in Washington. We shall continue sharing lots of things between Africa and the Caribbean. May God bless you all and bless Uganda in particular.
One reminder, Norman,